school assistant principal and I are working together on this virtual series. And I think Mr. Reuter has a few things he'd like to say before we introduce our speaker today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for being here, and always good to get a former comment back giving us some wisdom. So as we're going through with the presentation today, just make sure you keep your mic muted to keep the background noise from interfering, and we will utilize the chat feature in the top right, the little square with the lines. So if you have questions as presentation is going, you can drop them in there and we'll address them as we go.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Reuter. Today we have joining us Jeet Shah, and I am biased because Jeet was a former student of mine at Mason High School. Not only did I have him in class, but he also participated in some internships and did a tremendous job. And so I love following our former comets to see what they're doing now. I know many of you are tuning in because maybe you're interested in computer science. Perhaps you're interested in data analytics. Perhaps you're interested in engineering. And so Jeet just seemed like the perfect speaker for today. And so I would like to welcome Jeet and thank you for taking the time to spend with us today. And we'd love to hear about your career journey so far.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'm going to share my screen real quick just to get my intro slide on here. Let's see if I can figure this out. All right. Can people see my screen now?
Yes, we're good.
All right, sweet. So yeah, as Ms. Jantine said, my name is Jeet Shah. I was in the Mason class of 2016, which feels forever ago. But yeah, I'm studying computer science here at the University of Cincinnati. I'm in the bachelor's master's program. So I'm getting my bachelor's in computer science and then my master's of engineering in computer science as well. And then I'm also doing my minor in business analytics. So while I've been here at school, I've had the chance to do a few internships. I've listed out like the internships I've done so far. I've worked at GE Digital, Siemens PLM, and 8451. And I'll be graduating with a total of 5 internships, which is one of the really cool parts of the UC program. They build in a lot of experiential learning while you're there. And then outside of just working all the time, I've also had the chance to get pretty involved on campus. So I'm currently the president of UC's Dance Marathon, which is the largest nonprofit on campus. We raise over $80,000 every year for Cincinnati Children's. And then I'm also the vice president for Engineering Ambassadors. We handle all the tours and incoming visits for high schoolers, along with campus visits to different Cincinnati schools. I'm also part of the Student Alumni Council and Greek Life, which is exciting stuff. But yeah, so today I really wanted to talk about a little bit about like what I did in high school and middle school to prepare to get to this point. Because, you know, success isn't going to happen 100% of the time. And there have been plenty of times where I've felt a bit confused about what I was doing. So yeah, I guess I can start back in to going what kind of classes I felt I should take in high school and middle school. So one of the biggest focuses I wanted to take back then was really just focusing on math and science, trying to get those concepts down early on so that when I got to high school, I could have a better idea of what I wanted to do. Because when I was younger, I honestly didn't really know what I was doing. I knew I did not want to go. I knew what I didn't want to do, but I wasn't sure what sort of field I wanted to enter with like math or science. So when I got to high school, I took computer programming 1 with Mr. Coomer. Not sure if he's still there. But yeah, I took computer programming with him and I was very lukewarm on it. I wasn't the biggest fan, but I had room in my schedule for the next semester. So I took the second class and I ended up honestly really liking it. I just liked that I could build whatever I want with just like a few lines of code. And then as I kept taking classes Eventually taking like AP computer science, I realized there's so much you can do with this field. And that's what made me ultimately want to major in it. So yeah, I mean, that's like basically how I decided on computer science is just I took the classes, I ended up really liking them. And then I saw that this was a really solid career path. I did some research on the field and I saw that this was a very like long-term solution to like having a career. And yeah, so I guess going from there, uh, computer science. In terms of okay, so in terms of the skills that you would need for this sort of career, I would honestly just as long as you're like an analytical person and able to like quickly process information and like understand what's going on, I think in that regard you should be okay. Like being a super outgoing person isn't the most important thing in the world in this field, especially if you're looking at software engineering. But just being able to quickly process information and like convey results back to people, that's the most important thing. So a lot of that I learned from some like business classes that I started taking in college. I realized that I didn't want to just have an engineering background. I wanted to have a little bit of both sides. So trying to take some more like economics classes or like an Excel class just to figure out like how I can best, convey results to customers or like to a client. And yeah, so I'm kind of just jumping around a bit here, but let's see. Oh, I got a question. Sweet. When you were participating in internships or co-ops at UC, what did the typical day normally look like? That's a great question. So I guess to preface this, all of our co-ops and internships are paid, and they pay pretty well. So that was a pretty big plus when I was going on co-op. A lot of students look forward to co-op for this reason because, as a college student, it's pretty nice to have an income. But in terms of how my day looked, it was pretty normal, like 9 to 5 schedules. So I'd basically, wake up around 7:30, get ready for work. And once I was at work, I would get treated like a full-time employee. Um, I'd be working on projects with like large teams, or sometimes I would get my own project. Um, and yeah, so an example of a project I did, I can talk about my first internship at GE Digital. Over there, I worked on building out websites for different teams there. And that was pretty straightforward. I would just come in and I'd probably spend 5 or 6 hours a day writing code for websites, and then the other 1 to 2 hours a day in meetings. And yeah, like that's when I first got like real hands-on programming experience at the college level. And yeah, they're pretty chill days. And the best part about co-op is you get no homework. So when you get home at around 5:30, you have your whole day free. And there's really no responsibilities as a student. So that part was really nice. Okay, cool. I'll go into the next question. So how did you end up choosing between the fields? Yeah, that's a solid question. At first, I was thinking engineering. I had no idea what type of engineering. And the biggest reason for this was like I was a decent math student in high school. And I felt like that would play to my strengths. And I also enjoyed doing it. So when I was looking at all of the different types of engineering, there's like aerospace, mechanical, civil, and of course, computer engineering and computer science. So I realized I'm not the best at like actually building things, like hands-on, nor was I super inclined to like get into the details of like physics or anything like that. So I was immediately drawn toward computer engineering and computer science because I love that you could build things virtually. And then when I learned that computer science, the curriculum is 90% software and 10% hardware, I was pretty sold on it. And that kind of split is very similar at most schools. If you do computer science, you'll focus a lot on the programming side of things rather than, like circuits and actual devices. Yeah. Oh, and one other thing that helps for picking my field, I quickly eliminated what I didn't want to do. That was a big part of it. I knew I didn't want to go into medicine because like blood freaks me out. I knew I didn't want to go into like law because I'm not a big fan of reading. So, just stuff like that. And that was at a pretty early stage in high school. So I ended up picking my senior year of high school what I wanted to do. So I guess a little later than what most people figure out, but it worked out. How many programming languages do you know? Oh man, that's a good question. So, how many programming languages do I know? Well, a lot. But how many programming languages do I know well? I would say Python, Java, C++, and JavaScript. So 4. I know 4 languages well. I kind of hesitate to just like throw out really big numbers because if you're in an interview setting and someone asks you this, they expect you to be able to answer questions on any language you name. So if I said I knew like, I don't know, like C#, I don't know any C#, but if I said that, then someone could ask me an interview question about it and I would probably get it wrong. So yeah, there's that. I'm going to talk really quick about what software engineering is and then what data science is, because I've had experience with both of those fields. So software engineering, in my experience, this was kind of like the word says, basically building out different softwares. So I'd work on websites, I'd work on like developing database infrastructure, or maybe I would just work on like an automation system, but it was very building oriented, focusing on like a manager or a client saying like, I want XYZ technology. Can you make it? And then you would have to make it with a team. And then the languages and all of that, that just depends on the team you're working on. I've learned that once you learn one programming language, learning the rest is very easy. In fact, like employers that I've interacted with, they don't even care if you know their programming language. They just want to know if you can code to begin with, and they expect you to be able to learn on the job. So yeah, that's software engineering. And then quick thing about data science. So data science is a lot less building based. So I still write code as a data science intern, but I focus a lot more on getting large amounts of data and then turning those into actionable recommendations for clients and management. So 8451, we are the analytics subsidiary of Kroger. So, I mean, this past fall, I worked exclusively with pharmacy data. So working on the optimal locations to locate different pharmaceuticals, how we can sell more items to clients or to customers based on their location, along with figuring out which items customers lean toward, and things like that. Okay, so next question. What programs can you possibly do outside of school to learn more coding programs and languages? That is an awesome question. I'll be honest, I learned most of my programming skills outside of school. I think school is a great place to get a good start, but I think you have to like invest the time outside of that to figure things out. So actual like tangible recommendations I can make. So there's a site called udemy.com. I'll actually send it in here. So on udemy.com, they have like $10, $12 courses for like Java, Python, web development. And I've taken multiple of these courses. So I took a Python course on there. I took a web development course on there. So like I took like 3 or 4 courses for a total of like $40, $50, which may seem steep, but I mean, those courses ended up helping me get internships where I made that money back in a couple hours. So I think it's very worth that investment. But then on top of just like Udemy, you can also look at like YouTube. And I know people say that all the time, but the biggest thing I recommend in YouTube is you can like build projects alongside other people. So you can watch someone like build like a tic-tac-toe board in Python and you can follow along. And once you follow along and get a basic understanding, you can eventually figure out how to make adjustments to that and potentially build your own game down the road. But yeah, structured learning is how I would lean. So there's like 15, 20-hour courses on Udemy or plenty of other sources out there. Code Academy is there as well. But yeah. And then if you're younger, I would recommend starting with potentially simpler languages, like they have Scratch and things like that meant for you to learn with. And now companies like Google are also releasing like very easy follow along courses for younger people to learn programming as well. So those are cool to check out too. Okay. What is the easiest code to learn from the Okay, so the easiest language that I think is to learn, that's tough. I think they're all kind of difficult to start with. In high school, we started learning Visual Basic 6, which I thought was not a bad place to start. Python, though, is a very common first language for people because Python reads very much like English. It's not super complicated in terms of like weird symbols or anything like that. But if you learn Python, it's still a solid building block for learning other languages. So if I had to relearn code right now, that's probably what I would do. It's also the most useful across different fields. So if you don't go into computer science and you go into like biomedical engineering, Python could probably still be useful there as well. Okay, cool. So what kind of extracurriculars did you do in high school? Okay. So when I was in high school, I was pretty involved in high school. I did math team. I did National Honor Society, Spanish Honor Society, student government, and I was on the tennis team. I can't remember if I did anything else. But so that sounds really cool and all, like being in a bunch of stuff. But I'll be honest, like I was not a leader in any of those organizations. And I think if I had to do it over again, I would try to do fewer things, maybe one or two fewer clubs, and then try to get a leadership role in one of them. Not really to impress colleges or anything, just because now that I've had that experience in college, like it's a huge way to learn outside of just like taking classes. So like you can't really learn leadership skills outside of having the chance to be a leader in an organization. So yeah, that's my recommendation there. And there's really no best club to join in high school. They're all good. Um, just making sure that you have the chance to actually contribute in that club. I think that's the most important thing. Okay. What sort of models are actually implemented in practice for a data science company like 8451? That's a good question. So there's a lot of different types of models out there. I don't want to get too complicated for people who don't really know what these are, but basically a model is a way to predict an outcome based on an input. So let's say you go buy milk, bread, and peanut butter, then this model could predict that you're probably going to buy jelly as well. Something simple like that. And then in terms of what types of models, this is not an exaggeration. We use literally every type of model. Like I've built geospatial models based on like geographical locations, and then I've built out mathematical models based just on like probability and clustering and all of that good stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's really no best model. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I mean, we use everything. It's a very advanced analytics company, so there's a lot of stuff that I don't even know what's going on yet. So, yeah. What majors or career fields would you recommend for someone more interested in the hardware side of computers? That's an awesome question. So, at UC, so we break this out very nicely. So we always say if you love software and you love building websites and technology and like things like that, then do computer science. If you love the hardware, if you want to learn how currents work, if you want to build like processing chips and work on like actual hardware side of computing, then you can go into electrical engineering. But then if you want that blend between computer science and electrical engineering, then you can go into computer engineering. So at UC, the split in computer engineering is 70% hardware and 30% software, or it's probably more like 80% hardware and 20% software. And that's pretty solid because a lot of computer engineering students, they can get the same jobs that computer science students can get. In fact, like one of my really good friends, she's in computer engineering and she's about to start her software engineering internship at Apple this summer. And like being in computer engineering didn't hold her back at all. So if you're trying to keep your options more open, then computer engineering is like a fantastic way to go in that regard. Looking over. Okay, so I can talk a little bit about what, in terms of analytics and then data science, in terms of what I actually do in a day at work. So basically the way it works is I'll have an analytics driven project. For example, someone will be like, here's a set of data. Please provide a recommendation on how we can increase our sales of like Tylenol. And there's really no solid direction of where this project goes, but I have to go into the data and find different sorts of combinations or create different models and basically come up with a way that we can actually improve these things. And then I work with consultants to actually deliver like a PowerPoint or like a spreadsheet to the client at the end of the day. So like, as I said, it's a lot less like building based. Like I don't create websites anymore or build software, but I still write in Python and SQL every day. So there is still some coding, but it's a lot of interfacing with people and like understanding how all of that works. And yeah. Okay, so how do you get an actual internship? Yeah, that's a good question. So my biggest recommendation is just like keeping your options open, especially as a freshman. So one of the cool things about UC is like we have a whole office dedicated to getting people internships, and everyone in the College of Engineering graduates with 5 internships. So a lot of the work was already done for me there. But outside of that, like taking care of your grades in the classroom, that's a very big part of it. When you're a freshman with no work experience, the only thing the employers really have to judge you by that they can compare you to other people with is your GPA, which kind of sucks, but it's just the reality of it. So I recommend having pretty good grades along with potentially a personal project. So let's say you're interested in computer science, you can build a website or build your own personal website. So that way people can see like, oh, you're actually interested in this field and you can like actually code outside of just doing school projects. That's how I got my first internship. And yeah. What personal coding projects have you worked on? Good question. So I've built my own website. I don't want to give the link because I'm still it's a work. I had to update stuff, so yeah. But I also built out other websites. So I built out the past student body campaigns for student body president and vice president. I built out their campaign website. I also built out the website for UC Dance Marathon. I've also done several hackathons where I worked on like a nonprofit budgeting app. I worked on like a sentimental analysis tool that would like take someone's Twitter account and tell you how happy they are based on their Twitter account. That was a funny project. And yeah, I try to do something like every few months. I'm not always working on a personal project. It's really not about what you're doing either. It's just that you're doing something. So a lot of times in class, you won't get to always code. So it's nice to have it's nice to brush up on some skills every once in a while. And then sometimes I won't even do a personal project. I'll just like take a course on like a new technology or maybe something I already know just to like figure out if there's anything I'm missing or anything I can learn. Yeah. People love to hear about, like employers love to hear about students learning constantly because that's such a big part of working. So if you can prove that you actually love learning and you enjoy like getting new skills, then they're never going to care that you don't know exactly what their programming language is or like what exactly they're working on. I remember when I first interviewed to be a data science intern, I got super scared because all of my experience was in software engineering. And I wasn't sure if I would be able to go into data science, but it turns out like they're very open to teach you everything. They're just looking for you to have good attitude and having solid problem solving skills. So that's the biggest thing there. And yeah. Oh, also for personal coding projects, I have a GitHub account where I basically put that on every resume I have. And for those who don't know, GitHub is basically like a Google Drive for code, and you can share it with people so they can check out what you've worked on. So it's a pretty good flex for basically proving that you actually know how to code. So yeah, if you do code, I recommend having one of those. Oh, right. So how did can you add your personal project into your GPA and such? Oh, can you add your personal project? So your personal project and your GPA are like two separate things. Um, what I meant to say by that is like employers will see your GPA, but then you will also like let's say you have like a really high GPA of like a 3.8 or a 3.9. That's fantastic. But then if you also built a website, that's like super impressive. And that is what people are looking for. And that's also a great way to offset like a lower GPA. So if you don't have a great GPA and you've built out like a website or something like that, then employers have the tendency to overlook the fact that you don't have the best grades and they see that you're really interested in the field. So yeah, your personal projects, they won't affect your GPA, but it's just a great way to like have something alongside it. Going into So talking a bit about the master's program that I'm in. So I'm currently at UC's Ascend program. So I'm getting my bachelor's and my master's degree in 5 years, along with 5 internships, which is a really cool program that they have. And it's basically just I take a couple of graduate courses every semester that I'm there, and they're not honestly too hard. And I started doing that this past fall. And basically, like, it's no increase in tuition. I get to pay the same price that I would have paid for my undergrad degree, except I get a master's out of it. And yeah, I mean, it's a great program. I'm going to save a ton of money on my master's degree, and I get to keep doing internships. And when I graduate, I'll be able to hopefully get a higher salary because I have a master's degree. So that will be nice. And yeah, this program is actually not super competitive at UC either. So if you end up coming there, as long as you have above a 3.2, you're able to get into it. And yeah, a lot of the people with the best internships are in this program because employers love seeing kids who are, going for that advanced degree in the first place. How did you choose between different colleges? Yeah, that's a solid question. I guess I can talk about which colleges. So this is a long process. The college admissions process is very stressful. And I think it's a little overly, like I think I made it too stressful on myself. I applied to Ohio State, UC, Georgia Tech, Illinois. I don't even know if I applied anywhere else, but I applied to those schools. And I ended up having to decide between them. And ultimately, like, the most important thing to me was getting a low cost education, because I was pretty confident that wherever I went, I would have the chance to do cool projects and like get the chance to actually like get a good job. So that part wasn't a huge deal to me. I did care about football and having a good football program, a basketball program. And luckily UC did have one, and they're great. Actually, they're top 25 basically in both. And yeah, the biggest thing was cost. And I got lucky with a scholarship at UC. So that's one of the biggest things that got me there as well, along with the 5-year master's program. So yeah, being able to graduate in 5 years with 5 internships at a low cost, at the end of the day was just a pretty easy decision for me. And looking back, I kind of wish I put less stress on myself during the whole college process. I think people get carried away with going to a big name school, which is kind of funny to me now because my last internship like my intern team was U Chicago, Northwestern, and Carnegie Mellon, and then I was the one UC kid, and there was really no one smarter than the other person. It didn't really matter. So yeah, it's really what you make of it in college. Don't get too hung up on where you're going, in my opinion. Just go to somewhere that you think you can excel. Okay, what can you do to get high school internships in computer science? That's a good question. So I'll actually put this in here. There's an organization called Inter Alliance. I don't know if people have heard about that. So Inter Alliance is an organization for high schoolers. They have coding workshops, so they'll teach you like Java and Python and have different workshops on the weekend, along with they have an internship program as well. So I actually went through their internship program when I was in high school, and I got to work at GE the summer after my junior year of high school. And that was really cool. And basically, the best way I recommend getting to know that is like talking to people. Like I know Mason's pretty involved with Inter Alliance, and Mr. Coomer is very ingrained with them as well. And there's a event called Tech Olympics that they have every year that is also big. But yeah, that's like the biggest advice I have is like Inter Alliance, but then also understanding that like having a high school internship is not that big of a deal, honestly. I don't think it affected my college placements that much. Once you're in college, it's kind of just a different ballgame, to be honest. But yeah, Inter Alliance is a great way to get high school internships. I got the chance to get one, and it was really cool to like work in a corporate office for a summer rather than like the job I used to work. So it was a good change of pace. How much math? Wait, what else? How much math and what level of math is usually involved in computer science? That's a good question. Let's see. So I'm going through the math classes that I took. So the requirement is Calc 1, Calc 2, linear algebra, discrete math. Those are like the 4 core math classes. But then each of the computer science classes, they get very theoretical, and you have to understand like the basics of calculus. So just like integrals and differentials. And yeah, that's about like it's not too bad, honestly. And for most of it, like I'd say for 90% of computer science, if you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide really well, you'll be fine. Like honestly, I know there's like a couple jokes about that out there for computer science, but it's pretty true. Like there's nothing too advanced that I do. It just looks advanced because people are typing really fast on a screen, but at the end of the day, it's really not super advanced math. Yeah, if you're doing fine in your math classes in high school, then you'll be fine. Like, yeah, it's not too bad. Let's see if there's anything else. Is there anything I would have done differently in high school to prepare? I think if I was in high school, if I went back into high school, I would have probably taken fewer of the honors classes, and I would have tried to do maybe like a couple more. I would have used that free time to do more personal projects because I feel like I kind of spread myself thin in high school. I did a lot of clubs, and I was like in a lot of random AP classes that I don't really know why I took looking back, if that makes sense. So it is cool to take AP classes, and like you will get credit for them in college, but don't take AP classes just for the sake of taking them. Take them because you know you're going to get something out of it, or you're going to be able to use that credit in the future. So I think that's the biggest thing I would have done. I also would have probably tried to get a leadership position somewhere. I just didn't care about it that much when I was in high school, but looking back, it would have been a good experience. And I don't think much would have changed because of it, but I think it would have just been a good experience. So I don't really have much else. Let's see. So I guess, oh yeah, was there someone going to say something? So I guess I can talk a bit about college involvement then. So yeah, so when you go to college, just like general advice, I guess, is like to not get, you can't get super overwhelmed in college, because you have to understand that a lot of what you're learning at Mason, like a lot of what I learned at Mason was honestly harder than what I did in college. And when I got there, it was like it was a nice change of pace, honestly, because you're suddenly going from 7 to 8 hours of class a day to like 3 to 4 hours of class a day. And if you're able to utilize that extra 2 to 3 hours of free time to do your homework and study for exams, you'll find yourself with a lot of free time. So that's what I recommend. Don't procrastinate till the weekend. Like, save your weekend to do some fun stuff, hang out with your friends in college, get involved in some things on campus. Like, that's what really matters. And then you'll find that by doing that and staying ahead of the game, it'll end up translating to successful internships and successful co-ops, because employers love seeing well-rounded kids. And if you show that you get good grades in the classroom, but then you also make time to be a leader on campus, like, people love that. So that's what I recommend. Yeah. And it's okay to get a B or two in college. Don't stress about it too much. Yeah. Yeah, I don't get too obsessed with getting a 4.0, because I did that when I got to college, and let me tell you, it's not worth that struggle. But yeah, I think that's all I have. I don't have much else.
This was great. You addressed so many great topics here, and students, your questions have been wonderful. I just really appreciate your honesty, and I think it is very evident, Jeet, that you are just a model of wanting to be a lifelong learner. And I started jotting some notes of different things you were saying, and then I realized, like, first of all, there was too much for me to comment on at this point. But I just felt like everything you said went back to the reward, the personal reward of learning. You talked about, taking classes online for your personal interest. And the reward in that was learning. It wasn't getting a grade. It was from an outside organization. It wasn't a requirement. It wasn't even to build a resume. You were talking about the reward of learning. You also talked about, in order for you to determine your major, you took a lot of different electives, and you participated in a lot of experiences so you can figure out what you didn't want to do. And that's important. You also mentioned not everything will be successful. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. I heard a quote recently that said there are no failures as long as you learn something from it. And so, I think you addressed that as well. Just so many, your personal projects that you take on just for the learning experience just says so much about you, and obviously have enhanced yourself and the opportunities you've been provided and will continue to be provided, I'm sure, as you continue this journey. I think I saw another question just come in. I want to make sure that you have a chance to answer that before we leave.
Oh yeah, I can answer this one real quick. Are there credits given to summer courses that you do at colleges? Yeah, I mean, you can take summer courses at like community colleges or like Sinclair that can get redeemed at colleges like UC and Ohio State. Things like calculus or like biology or chemistry. But I mean, if you're going to do something like this, just be aware that it's probably not going to save you money in college, because you're still going to have to stay in college for the same amount of time. The only way you save money in college is by graduate. Like, you get charged per semester in college, not by credit, if you're a full-time student. So taking classes ahead of time, if you're doing it to give yourself an easier schedule in college, like, sure, or to get a little ahead, that's fine. But just like, make sure to look at everything before you're going to take extra classes in the summer.
Great advice. Great advice about selecting a college, about your high school self. This was wonderful. We just really appreciate your time. Students, do you have any last questions that Jeet can answer for you?
Oh, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and like reach out to me if you have questions. I'll answer them. Don't worry.
Great. And it's all about these experiences, you guys, participating in event like this right now that, you know, helps, again, you decipher what you may want to do in the future. What do you, I see a question there, what's your dream company? And I'll also ask you, ideally, what would you like to do? Like, where do you see yourself 10 years from now, Jeet?
Yeah, I'll answer the dream company first. I'll be honest, I don't have a dream company. I have a dream culture that I would want to work in. And it's really just being surrounded with people who are smarter than me and getting to work on projects that are a lot bigger than me. That's what I am like obsessed with. The name of the company is not that important to me, like at all. It used to be. I used to want to work at like all these really cool, fancy companies, and then I realized everyone honestly pays very similarly. And at the end of the day, you just want to work at somewhere that like appreciates you and you can be happy at, and you get to do cool work. That's the biggest part. So yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a kind of avoided the question, but that's what I think about it.
That was a great answer.
And then, so the 10-year plan question, that's a good one. So when I was in high school, I used to like always plan ahead. I was like, oh, in 3 years, I'm going to go to this college, or in 5 years, I'm going to get this degree. And none of my plans came true because I would just change my mind like along the way. So whatever I say now is probably not going to happen. But 10 years from now, I think it'd be really cool to be in some sort of like data analytics management sort of position, or potentially product management, like helping to get products off the ground and like developing software at like a large scale. I don't know if I want to still be programming a lot in 10 years, but I still want to code a little bit. So maybe like oversee people or help out. I don't know. Maybe be a guest lecturer or an adjunct at a college. That might be fun too. And I don't know yet. We'll see.
Great. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed hearing from you today. It's always nice to catch up and hear what our comments are doing. And we hope to have you back joining us sometime soon.
I think I got one more question here.
Okay.
What type of projects should you suggest to solidify the understanding of knowledge? I mean, honestly, just do something that you think is fun. It doesn't really matter if you're going to be able to finish it or if you think you're qualified enough to finish it. Just like do something you enjoy. And especially because now it's the summer, if you can find something that you can spend like 1 or 2 hours a day on, like don't beat yourself up over it, but 1 or 2 hours a day on like either a website, or maybe you have a cool app idea, or maybe you just want to learn how to build an app. Like all of those are cool. Like I see all of those as a great way to get ahead of the game and like show initiative. So yeah, just like do something fun, basically. There's YouTube tutorials for literally everything. Now it's everything. So yeah.
I love it. Great advice. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I see someone has chatted in the Inner Alliance website. That is a tremendous organization, students. I would highly recommend, if you're interested in anything in computer science, that you look into it. They provide great opportunities, and there are a lot of large and small companies that are participating in it, and they do pay their interns. So, and for high school students. So it's a great organization. I encourage you to look into it. Occasionally I get some things in experiential learning, though for computer science, those are usually organizations looking for someone to help them build a website, or maybe to help give them some advice on a mobile app. Those are, you know, not real regular, but when I do get them, I post them on Schoology. So just watch your Schoology groups for those opportunities. But yeah, certainly reach out to Inner Alliance as well. A lot of great, as you can see, great experiences provided. Well, thank you so much, Jeet. We'll try to get together a little sooner the next time. It's great to see everything that you're doing. I'm just so proud of you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. This was fun.
Thanks. Have a good day, everyone.